ishara that a woman will cause you more grief with her tongue and her eyes, which are in the upper part of her body. If you try to straighten her, you break her, i.e. give her talaq. So again, ishara that if there's faults in your wife, overlook them and do sabr. You get sawab for that. Another hadith says that a believing man, in other words a husband, does not hate a believing woman, in other words his wife. If he doesn't like something in her, one of her khaslat, there's something else that he will like. So look for the goodness, look for the good things in his wife, and not just focus on the bad things. The beloved Habib of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that whatever a man spends on his family is sadaqah. Whatever a man spends on his family is sadaqah, is charity. And he also said that a man is even rewarded for lifting, for raising a luqma, a morsel of food to his wife's mouth. A morsel of food that he raises to his wife's mouth, he is rewarded for that. Another hadith in Mubarakah states, a man is even rewarded for giving his wife water to drink. Quickly, the duties of a wife. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this hadith is going to be the most emphatic, the most important hadith for a woman to remember when it comes to the book of her husband. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if I gave anyone the order, if I ordered anyone to prostrate to anyone else, one human being, to prostrate to another human being, I would have commanded the woman to prostrate to her wife, to her husband. A woman should remember that she cannot leave her husband's house without his permission, even if he is a zalim, even if he doesn't fulfill his hukuk. And a woman should remember that a woman pleases Allah, a wife can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more by staying at home and obeying her husband in lawful commands, than she gets more sawab for that than she does for going outside and visiting sick people or other nakiyah. Her sawab lies in staying in the home. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam even referred to, when he mentioned the namaz of a woman, he said that the namaz of a female, the namaz of a woman in the courtyard of her house is better than her namaz in the masjid. A man gets more sawab in the masjid, not a woman. A woman gets more sawab for praying in the courtyard of her house. And then he said, and the namaz that she prays in her room is better, afdal, than the namaz that she prays in her courtyard. And then he said that the namaz that she prays in the inside, the inner room, the more concealed room is even better than that. The back room is better. So the more she conceals herself, the closer she is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A woman's sawab, a woman's qurb towards Allah doesn't lie in her being outside, fighting for her rights to be in the masjid. A woman praying namaz in the masjid, a woman's namaz, she gets more sawab. Even for the namaz, when she's closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when she's in her home, when she is concealed in her home. A haq, which is for the men and women, is for them to not unnecessarily argue with each other. The Salaf Salihin, in the previous times, they say that when a man used to walk out of his house, step out of his house, and go in the morning, set out to work, his wife or his daughter used to say to him, avoid haram sustenance, avoid earning haram. Men would be advised by their wives and their daughters to avoid unlawful earnings. And the women of the house used to say, avoid haram because we can bear hunger. We can do sabr on hunger and pain. Hunger and pain we bear, but we cannot do sabr on the punishment of hell. So the wives and the daughters of the previous ages used to give this nasiha, used to give this advice to their husbands as they stepped out of their homes to learn their things. So women should have qana'at pasandi. Qana'at, contentment, be satisfied with the little, not always be making demands from their husbands, unnecessary demands. And for either man and woman, for them to respect each other's families and to respect each other's relatives. Regarding the hukuk of a woman once in Qutul Qulub, there is a hadith mentioned that once a man set out in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he set out on the journey and he told his wife before he set out, he gave a command. He said that you can't, he had two floors, there was a ground floor and an upper floor in his home, and she was in the upper floor. And he told her not to descend to the lower floor. The ground floor. He gave a hukum. And he set off on his journey. The woman was in the upper floor and her husband, her father was in the ground floor. And he was sick. He was sick. So she had a messenger. She had someone sent to the Prophet ﷺ to inquire if she had permission to descend to the lower floor to see her father, because her husband had told her not to. So she wanted permission to disobey, to go against the command of her husband. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ati'i zawjak," obey your husband. In other words, no, don't come down, stay where you are. Her father was in. Then her father died. Her father died, but her husband had told her not to descend to the lower floor. She sent someone to the Prophet ﷺ asking for permission if she could descend, because her father had died, and the Prophet ﷺ gave the same reply: obey your husband. Obey your husband. No, you can't come down and do this. After her father was buried, the Prophet ﷺ sent someone to the woman to give her news that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forgiven her father in his grave due to her obedience of her husband. It's her husband that she obeyed, it's her father that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave in his qabr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her father in his qabr for her obedience towards her husband. A woman cannot even fast nothing without her husband's permission. And it is wajib. A woman has the right to visit her family, to leave her husband's house and go to the family. Once a week she has the right to visit her parents. But she cannot even stay overnight at her parents' house without the husband's permission. But once a week, he cannot stop her from visiting her parents once a week. But staying overnight, anything wajib that her husband tells her, if her husband tells her, gives her a command, something permissible, it becomes wajib for her to obey that command. And that, as I mentioned in the hadith earlier, the sabr aspect applies to both men and women. The hadith that says a man who is sabir on the incarnate man is of his wife is given the sawab equivalent to the sawab of Hazrat Ayyub alayhi salam. But the woman, she also needs to, if she sees something, any shortcoming in the husband, she should be sabr. And not be ikhtilaf. Sabr, she will get the same amount of reward as Sayyida Asiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anha, the wife of Fir'aun. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to remember the things that have been said, which to fulfill our duties and protect our eyes. In this day and age, between the divorce rates and the amount of conflicts between husband and wife are very high, even in the Asian community. And one of the reasons in the Asian community is because the conflicts between the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law. And my Sheikh advises, if it's possible for you, any married couples or anyone intending to get married, if possible, without causing any conflict and without hurting your parents, they still have a long home, even though it's been a tradition for so long that we have our lives, we live with our parents, even after marriage. But because of, in this day and age, the problems between mother-in-laws and daughters-in-laws are so much, it is a further wajib for you to get a set of powers. But a lot of the disputes and the divorces and the conflicts in the Asian homes are because of the mother-in-law and the daughters-in-law not getting on. So if you can, if it's possible, and without hurting your parents as well, it's wiser to have your own home. And one of the things to be remembered is, in our Asian community, because we live without a wife and parents as well, and it's our wife that usually does all the cooking and the washing for our father and our mother as well. So what we need to remember is that our wife is only obliged to obey us. If she washes the clothes of your father and your mother, she's doing them a favor. That is the further family. If she's cooking the food for the entire family, it's only you that she has to cook for. If she's cooking food for her father-in-law and her mother-in-law, because they're in the same roof, if she's doing ihsan, a favor upon them, and it's not something that you can force them to do. And I finish off one of, as I mentioned before, the Ghibah is haram, but there are 12 cases when you're allowed to backbite, and one of them is if someone asks you for a mashwara about an issue of marriage. Lying is also haram. Lying is haram. If it is haram, or one of the situations, there's a few instances where you're allowed to lie as well. And one of them is that a husband is allowed to lie to his wife to avoid causing friction between them, to maintain sulh, peace, and mahabbat, love. One of the cases where a man can lie is he can lie to his wife in certain cases. We must know that things will be remember whatever has been said. وعمل خالد وعمل بجهل صلى الله عليه وسلم.